Hey everybody, it's your boy Will here, fresh in the middle of my California sojourn. In a little bit, you'll be hearing another movie episode with special guest Sarah Squirm. But before then, just a quick reminder that this Saturday on the Twitch stream, Chris Wade will be hanging out with friend of the show Dan Beckner of Wolf Parade and Operators. They're going to be watching some videos, live concert footage, and most importantly, promoting the upcoming Frequency Festival. Tickets still available. Once again, this Saturday, twitch.tv/Chapo Trap House from 5 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So tune in, hang out, we'll be dropping by. And once again, tickets still available to the Frequency Festival. Without further ado, Equilibrium.
In a future where feelings are illegal.
Fall of Bustin'.
In a not-so-distant future, where being horny is illegal.
Sarah, go again.
In a not-so-distant future, where the hot director is also in the movie he made.
All right, Matt.
In a world where crying is not just gay, it's also illegal.
All right, so in 2002, America was reeling from 9/11. We didn't know where we were on feelings. We didn't know if they were good or bad. It was, George W. Bush made a speech about how, they didn't know if they were going to outlaw feelings or not, because that's why 9/11 happened, is feelings. People felt like they wanted the gold at the bottom of the Black Eagle Trust in Tower 1 and to burn all the insurance documents of the Black Eagle Trust gold in Tower 7. But then an amazing man came along, a man named Kurt Wimmer, who's beautiful, and he came up with the greatest movie of all time. I can describe this film, Equilibrium, as if John Hamm's character in 30 Rock tried to write Philip K. Dick.
I would describe it as a nearly 2-hour adaptation of the original Apple TV commercial directed by Ridley Scott, where conformity is smashed by personal computing devices. Folks, we've been talking about some heavy shit the last couple episodes. Israel, Palestine, the secret military of Six Flags guys who are doing false flag terrorist attacks across America.
This is the secret military.
But so for today's episode, we thought we'd switch things up a little bit and induct a movie into the Chapo canon that longtime fans of the show will realize that we have been referencing for a long time now. And
6 years.
Yeah, it's probably Felix's favorite movie.
Yes.
It's as he mentioned, it's Equilibrium. Came out in 2002 as part of the sort of Matrix knockoff boom. But it is better than The Matrix and better than most movies ever made.
Yeah. So this is there are 3 greatest movies ever. They're all tied: Butterfly Effect, Alpha Dog, and Equilibrium.
Well, we're gonna get into it today. But joining us for this episode in our foray into feelings, it's Sarah Squirm, everybody.
I have a lot of feelings. Lock me up, honey.
So yeah, this is Equilibrium, directed by Kurt Wimmer.
Yes.
Kurt Wimmer, starring Christian Bale, Taye Diggs, and Emily Watson. Like I said, this is very much people thought this was going to be the next Matrix, but essentially American society was too stupid to understand this movie and appreciate it for what it is. But I think we're going to give it its proper due today. But before we start, Felix, you mentioned that you liked this movie so much when you first saw it, you showed it to your parents when you were 12.
I in fact did. I was obsessed with this movie when I was 12. I had some bullshit job that you give 12-year-olds, getting your neighbor's mail, and I would use it to just buy shit. I would go to Chinatown and buy a katana, or buy an Army Ranger's knife online that my mom would confiscate, or the DVD to Equilibrium. And I was so obsessed with it, as I thought the gun kata was so fucking sick that I would watch this with director's commentary with Kurt Wimmer. When I was going to sleep, I would put it on my computer and then just lie in my bed and listen to Kurt Wimmer go, yeah, and if you look at the symbol on the muzzle flashes, it's actually the Tetragrammaton cleric symbol. It's very cool. And I'd be like, what a great director. And then I think, I forgot how I even, managed to do this, because it's Well, we liked action movies in my house. Like my dad loved action movies, and one of the first R-rated movie I saw was just like Terminator 2 was on the TV when I was like a little kid. So I was like, I think I sold it that way. I was like, oh, this is like Terminator 2, and I was basically like, no, we have to watch this as a family. And my parents are like, what the fuck?
Like when
what is
AJ
this?
Soprano gave his mom the Matrix DVD.
It's exactly like that. It's like, yeah.
I was gonna wrap it, but it's wasteful to the environment.
Well, okay, so for those of you who don't know, Equilibrium, I mean, like, basically, how should I describe this movie? It's sort of like, what if there were a society where everything worked and nothing was fucked up? I mean, like, we live in sort of a dystopian freaking hell world here.
Yeah.
But what if we lived in a totally normal world?
Yeah.
And the thing is, the problem with everything in human society, one thing, feelings.
It's feelings.
Yeah.
It's feelings. So what if we just got rid of feelings?
If we got rid of feelings, we would all be able to walk around wearing the same outfits, not making eye contact, going about our jobs, everything very chill and cool, listening to giant speakers and the holograms of dudes telling us that it's cool not to have feelings, and we would all be doing great.
Yeah, so like in Equilibrium, they live in a place called Libria, and it's like most of humanity seems to have been wiped out by World War III, and their response is to basically make everyone take Lexapro.
Yeah.
They have to take this thing called I think it's just lithium.
It's called Prosium.
Prosium.
Yeah.
They're really going there light touch there with Prosium.
Yeah, and it's like everyone has to shoot these vials into their necks, and everyone, I don't even know where anyone works. They're all wearing like boiler suits. It's like a crowd of people wearing boiler suits going to different gray buildings, and it's like, okay, well, what is your job?
Most of the population in Libria works at the hall of walking in single file.
Yeah.
From what we see, the job they all have is killing people who have feelings.
Yeah.
That's the Make Work Project. We divide humanity into two parts: people with feelings and them without, and then the ones without just kill the ones who have feelings.
And like
then that's the economy.
The only like, I guess you could call it entertainment, is like listening to the same speech by like the administrator Breen type figure father, who like looks like a guy he's the opposite of Martin Noakes, who sang "The Trial of Tony Blair," my favorite song. And like every day he just does this speech where it's like, mankind only wants war, but when you have feelings, war becomes as simple as drinking a glass of water. So what if we work together, not for war, but for peace? And it's just like, he's apparently been doing this speech every day for like 20 years, like while everyone's going to their job in the incineration hall.
The Big Brother character in this movie looks as if like Steve Jobs didn't do that diet where he ate only vegetables.
So yeah, as the film begins, it lets you know that in the first years of the 21st century, a third world war broke out, and mankind knew that it could never survive a fourth. And we get a sort of montage of Stalin and Saddam Hussein, and it was sort of like, how do we stop these feelings
guys
monsters?
who have these feelings?
Yeah, that's why Saddam was bad, was his feelings.
He was too in his feelings.
So how do we stop them? Well, the answer is they invented something called the Grammaton clerics.
And like the Grammaton clerics, they do a form of karate known as gun kata, where they're like, they can kill the maximum amount of people in the room by like waving their guns around the right way.
And then also
It
avoid
imagines
return
the gun.
gunfire.
Yeah.
It imagines the gun as a total weapon.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Through analysis of thousands of recorded gunfights, the cleric has determined that the geometric distribution of antagonists in any gun battle is a statistically predictable element.
The gun cutter treats the gun as a total weapon, each fluid position representing a maximum kill zone, inflicting maximum damage on the maximum number of opponents, while keeping the defender clear of the statistically traditional trajectories of return fire.
A lot of people think of a gun as just something that like fires a bullet at a target. No. It's so much more than that.
You flip it around. You move it around. There's a button you can press that puts little spokes that come out of the end of the clip, so you can punch people in the head with it.
Yeah.
And you can use it for a bunch of different things.
But the Tetragrammaton's clerics, their job is to like go into this region called the Nethers, which is like an exurb of Libria, where like everyone who looks like, guys who have been on Caroline Calloway's Instagram story, like they all listen to Captain and Tennille and cry because like their job is to kill these guys who aren't taking Lexapro. they kill like 70,000 of these guys a day.
Yeah, they're very proud of the civilization they've created that doesn't have any war. It just has a daily gunfight that kills 500 people.
For the crime of chuckling to yourself, reading a funky Winker Bean column that had been sort of secreted into the Librian society.
Sir, we found the original press of Jesse's Girl. Let's execute 1.3 million people who heard it.
We have to kill these people before they release all the snappy answers to stupid questions into the water supply.
Yeah, we're going to get into it, but they're like, the culture that they're called sense offenders in the movie that they have is so awesome. Like, it's just shit. Like, it just sucks.
And you could tell when someone's a sense pest when they're wearing ripped jeans.
Yeah, the thing they have in common is that they hoard crap.
Yeah. yeah.
No, honestly, it's a war on hoarding really more than a war on feelings. Because,
Yes.
like, in the Tetragrammatron Society, in the Grammatron clerics, like, they live in houses just very minimalist. They got no decor, no posters, no art, no kitsch anywhere. It's just sort of very flat, gray beds and, and then mirrors with no frames on them.
Yeah.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah. But, the way you rebel is like, yeah, you're like, I'm going to listen to a Chicago record in an abandoned IKEA that I live in. They're like, it's like DIY people versus like Germans. That's how I would describe this movie. It's like all the rebels are like the DIY guys who are like, it's like 2021 and they're like, yeah, I'm still with the punk spirit. Part of that is like trying to trick 17-year-olds into moving into this building that I live in and like having it burned down and saying that it's not my fault.
The rebels live in kitsch apartments and the clerics live in Wayfair apartments. And that's the big divide.
Yes.
Yeah. Everything, like all the clothes for the Tetragrammaton clerics are like if they made Reformation dresses for men.
They wear gator waiter suits.
Yeah.
So the film begins with like a sort of a SWAT raid on a feelings house.
Yeah.
And so they got the SWAT team there, and then they're like the site is secure, sir. Like and then Christian Bale and his partner, his fellow Grammatron cleric, played by Sean Bean, show up, and they're like, we got this. And then they they're like they've secured the hallway, and there's like a secure door where behind it the feelings criminals are. And Christian Bale runs in it, kicks it down, and then stands in total darkness for like a good 3 seconds while people are like, wait, what's going on? I can't see anything. And then he uses gun kata to kill all of them.
Yeah.
And again, gun kata is when, you've heard of punching, you've heard of kicking, but what if you're punching and kicking with a gun?
That's it.
Yep.
That's 3 times the lethality.
We should talk a little bit about Christian Bale in this role. Christian Bale as the Grammaton cleric John Preston. Basically, he's like Neo, but better because he has hair like Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, and this is like, make no mistake, like you may think we're like making fun of the premise of the movie, but this is what California wants to do with the pandemic. This is what Newsom wants.
So yeah, the feelings traders, they're executed on site, but like they find a huge stash of music and art, including like they tear up the floorboards and they find the Mona Lisa just hidden under the floorboards of this feelings house.
Yeah,
You can't let people see that because they're going to start catching feelings.
Yeah.
So they got to.
and they put like a Nokia N gauge over the Mona Lisa, and it's like scanning 100% real. So sick.
And then they bring in the flamethrower crew and they torch all the feelings.
Yeah.
It's a big part of this movie is that art, it's sort of meta commentary because this movie is trying to say that art is dangerous and it's dangerous to totalitarian societies. So the first thing they'd want to do is get rid of cool art and music, like Equilibrium and the Mona Lisa.
Yeah. Which are the same. Like Equilibrium is to movies as Mona Lisa is to paintings.
Yeah. I mean, that's clear.
What's more emo, though, than burning a bunch of paintings in someone's weird apartment?
Yeah.
Well, see, that's part of it is that all these people, all these feelings cops, they're all sitting on just a volcano of feelings that they can't acknowledge.
Yeah, they're hypocrites, and that's the worst thing they do. Not the. Well, we'll get into who I think the true villain of the movie is. That scene in the yard, like midway through the movie. But yeah.
Ma'am, is that a Mona Lisa in your pocket?
So like I said, Christian Bale and Sean Bean are Grammaton clerics, and they're like the highest level of feelings cop that exists.
Because they know gun cop.
Yeah.
Because there's a bunch of other cops who just absolutely
They
are
use
like
guns the
red
regular
shirt
way.
oafs, and
They
just have-
suck.
They have huge machine guns, but they never know how to shoot them. They get killed instantly. But if you're a Grammaton cleric, you have gun kata. You are essentially a one-man WMD.
Yeah, the regular cops carry G36 rifles and wear a coat you would wear to Bergheim in 2001, like a big leather trench coat. And it's like, if you just run towards them, they'll fall over. Like, they're repeatedly killed in this movie by being slapped on the ear.
But we begin to get all is not well in the perfect no feeling society, because after they execute the sense criminals, they're heading back to the hall of no feelings, the no fun zone, aka the city of Libria. And Christian Bale is sort of he's like, hey, wait, what's that in your pocket? And we see Sean Bean has just sort of for himself, he just very slyly has put a collection of Yeats's poetry into his leather trench coat. But it's just he sat down in a car, and you know how that is. Your pocket opens up, your shit falls out of your pocket, and then it's you have to dig around in the car seats to get it, and it's there it is. It's a volume of Yeats's poetry. And Christian Bale is like, hey, are we supposed to burn that? What happened to the evidence collection unit? It needs to be all sent to the Hall of Evidence. And he's just oh, sometimes they make mistakes. I'm going to take it to the Hall of Evidence personally. And Christian Bale, because he doesn't have that intuition anymore. He's just sort of okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So then we get to see Libria, a city of the future. If you've ever wondered why there aren't enough blimps in our society, it's because we have too many fucking feelings growing it up.
Blimps are the most efficient way to travel, but
The most efficient way to spread a message,
Don't have
attention,
feelings. Stop having
citizen,
feelings.
make sure to take your Lexapro.
yeah. And again, this is what life is like in New York. This is what the bungalow has done.
No, the depiction of Libria was very much like Bill de Blasio's New York.
It's exactly like it.
It's just everything is drab and gray, and people are sort of marching in lockstep, and just feeling bad but not willing to say anything about it.
Yeah.
And there's blimps saying,
Take your pills.
take your pills and get a Metro card.
Yeah. The schizophrenic intuition you have, they're delusions. They're schizophrenic delusions.
And the giant screens that indoctrinate society are saying things like, there is a disease in the heart of man, and it needs to be cured with the opium of the masses.
Yeah, no, they call the pill or the vial that everyone has to take the opiate of the masses, and it's you really get the sense of the kind of guy Kurt Wimmer is, which is not an ideologue, but he's just vaguely picked up things from history. Someone told him something from the big red book of communism, and someone told him something from Nazi Germany, and so he just vaguely remembered the phrase opiate of the masses, and he's oh, that's what a dictator would say about a thing he likes.
No, it's sort of when you get on the subway, it's stand clear of the closing doors. Except in this society, it says things like, feelings lead to... Wait, no, it says, art leads to feeling, and feeling leads to war. If you see anyone enjoying art, kill them on sight. Yeah. And my favorite part in the scene where they're introducing you to this terrible dystopian society is there's just a sea of people just sort of drudging in gray color, looking at the floor, and then above them all there's just this random child who just points out an old man who's immediately carried away to be executed. There's just a child who's he's got feelings.
Yeah, he saw an old man frowning, and it's no, we have to kill him, or in a year there's going to be war.
So essentially Christian Bale is the head of the feelings police, and the movie is sort of his journey to become the Chris Dorner of the feelings police.
Yeah.
And the thing is he is as they explain, he is the very best at tracking down sense offenders because he's able to use a sort of non-feeling empathy to imagine and intuit, what someone is thinking or feeling, even if they have a totally blank face and they're just pretending not to. But despite being the best sense cop of all time, we learn that his wife was incinerated for sense crimes 4 years ago. She was doing sense crime right under his nose, and despite and then the bad guy played by Angus McFadden, who was Robert the Bruce in Braveheart, and the main guy in Saw 3. He says he's oh, pretty weird that you're a top sense cop and your wife was catching feels on the low. Why didn't you report her? Or why didn't you see it? And he was it's my biggest disappointment, sir. I'll never let it happen again. They're like, okay, well, if you do, you'll be killed.
They have the society where they have banned feelings, and they still have like marriages and nuclear families.
Yes,
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
really
How
make
is it
sense.
supposed to work?
Like, yeah, how do you pick the woman that you like love? It just or like
No,
that
you
you're gonna
can't.
get married.
No, you're going to jail if you even said that. No.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny because like they introduced this and then like there's all these things where like Angus McFadden, the bad guy, keeps trying to catch him out by just being like, "How does that make you feel, Cleric Preston?" And he's just like, "Well, not like much." And they're like, "Really, not much, you say?"
Yeah.
Yeah, no, everybody, it seems like a very stressful work environment because every interaction is someone trying to test you.
Well, that's how
into
they get
giving
you.
up a
There's no
feeling.
such thing as stressful.
Yeah.
But they
Shit.
You fell into the
God
trap.
damn it.
but they like break their own rules all the time because like people will randomly like yell at each other over feeling stuff or like smile when they think they've caught somebody feeling. But it's like, no, that's you, dude.
Yeah, you
You're
just hit a feeling.
They're
You
like,
hit
he's
feelings.
like, Cleric Preston, what would you say if I said that 100 citizens were caught passing around a secret copy of Dave Barry's Guide to Guys and having a chuckle to themselves? Well, I don't feel anything, sir. Really, you feel nothing about that? You don't even feel anger? Well, maybe a little bit. Send him to the send him to the Hall of Combustion.
That's the only thing this society does is just like execute people. It's their entire economy.
Yeah, pretty much every job in Libria is in some form of processing people from interrogation to execution.
Yeah, it seems like there are actually more people who are sense rebels than there are like citizens
Grammaton
of Libria.
clerics.
Yeah.
So Angus McFadden like sort of puts the idea in his head that like, oh, there's sense criminals all around you and you're too stupid to notice it. So of course he thinks back, hey, what was it with my partner just taking that book for himself?
Yeah.
So he tracks Sean Bean to the local abandoned cathedral in the Nethers where people go to read, and he catches him in there, and he's of course reading he's reading Yeats, he's reading Sailing to Byzantium and having a little cry to himself, thinking about the birds in the trees, and then he's just like, he's like, I've been feeling stuff for years, dude. And then he just and then Christian Bale executes him by shooting him through a book in his face.
Yeah, and you could tell like Kurt Wimmer was like thought that was the sickest thing in the world. Like in his mind, it's like, he would, if you showed Kurt Wimmer like street art where it's like a kid is stopping a soldier's bullet by putting a book in the barrel of his gun, he would like break down in tears because it's like, oh yeah, would you die for knowledge?
It's like, okay, think of a poem. Yeats. Okay, think of a painting. The Mona Lisa. Think of music. What's the best music? Beethoven.
Yeah, everything. I think that's why, like, I loved it so much as a 12-year-old because it's like that. When you're like a kid, it's like, oh, I wonder what smart people listen to. Probably Beethoven, Moonlight Sonata.
So he executes his partner for a sense crime, and then of course he gets a new partner, played by Taye Diggs, who is like the biggest prick. He's clearly like he sees Christian Bale as like, oh, he's the top cleric, but I'm going to be the number one daddy of the Tetragrammatron. But he can't help but like smirk all the time. I don't know if this is maybe it is intentional because we'll get to the end of this movie. There's a little twist.
Yeah.
But a big theme in this movie.
There's a couple of twists.
This is like the most confusing movie ever made.
You have to be pretty intelligent to follow the plot of this movie.
Yeah.
It's like when I first saw Mission Impossible, the first Mission Impossible as a kid, and I was like, that was awesome, but like never in a million years will I understand what took place in that movie because it's just too complicated.
No, I saw that movie when I was 6 and I like got mad. I'm pretty sure I like cried alone, like watching it in a room with a TV because I didn't understand it.
So then he starts having dreams because one of the last things Sean Bean says to him, he's like, you're treading on my dreams, which I believe is a line from Yeats. I don't know exactly which poem it is, but Kurt Wimmer certainly knows. So he's like, do you have dreams? He's like, not since I started taking Prosium. And he goes, well, you're treading on my dreams. And then he shoots him in the face. So, but he starts having dreams, and he has a flashback to his wife being assassinated. And she kisses him after she's taken away. She kisses him, and then like doesn't really recognize him. He's like, his emotional glaciation is beginning to thaw out.
And then we learned that it was actually like a role play thing. That they were having orgy with all the cops that came to arrest them. That was like the last act of being a sex nerd in Libria.
What did she do to get sent to sex crimes jail?
They don't say. They just say that she had feelings.
I don't know. She kept a piece of colored fabric in her pocket, which she touched from time to time.
Yeah. No, it seems it's amazing they don't execute more people, because it's like the way you get revealed is like, it's like, oh, you have an Uncle John's bathroom reader, like just out in your house, so we have to kill you.
Well, they execute a lot of women because women be feeling.
Yeah, there are like no women.
There's like there is 2 women portrayed in this entire society. One, his dead wife, and then Emily Watson, who sort of looks like his dead wife.
Yeah,
that's it. But also his son is like the most evil snitch of all time, because his son is like the overlord of the apartment, who's like the no color, no adornment apartment that they live in. His son is just always watching him like a hawk and just being like, "Dad, did you take your Prosium?" And then it all starts to go wrong or good, depending on how you look at the movie. When he's brushing his teeth and he drops his vial and it shatters on the ground before he can dose his neck with it. And then his son sees that and he's like, "You'll be going to Equilibrium tomorrow and reporting this, right, Father?" And he's like, "Yes, son, you're a good citizen for noticing this." But, the first part of his rebellion is that he notices what an annoying little shit his son is, and he feels mad about it.
Yeah. That's his first feeling.
That's his first foray into sense crime.
and that is a message to like anyone who's listening who has kids. You are like, you're rebelling against the system if you like don't like your kid.
It's true. You're expected to appreciate your children, and if you don't, that just shows your resistance.
Yeah.
I don't know how to weave this in, but I just have a note here that says, Mayor Bloomberg, all human conflict comes from a desire for soda.
yeah. That's what we say, that this is Bloomberg's New York. And he was that's what it was like when in like 2008, he would just get on big TVs and be like, all wars started because both sides wanted to acquire big gulps.
All wars started.
Tons of NYPD officers, they saw their wives executed because they were hoarding soda. They would tear down a false wall in the house. They would like pull out a book on a bookshelf, and there's just a room full of like
Mountain Dew,
Surge, Jolt Cola.
Well, he's onto something, because soda does make you too sugar candy hyper, and that's a feeling.
Well, yeah, that's how we created the Sistine Chapel, things like that with soda. Soda is like, it occurs in nature and it's good for us.
Felix has vials of soda that he shoots into his neck so he can do good podcasts good.
You're like annoying little shit son walking by you and see that you drop soda on the ground. You will be reporting to Costco tomorrow to pick up more Coke Zero.
Okay, so he's off with his new partner, Taye Diggs. And then to arrest Emily Watson, who is a woman who has gone off her dose and has an illegal mirror frame, which they break immediately. But of course, she also has a secret feelings cave filled with Funko Pops and Garfield collections and things like that. And they take her off, but Christian Bale's like, we need her alive. I want to interrogate her. Because he's off his meds too, and he's starting to have feelings and dreams, and he's sort of like pulling down the weird latex cover on his bathroom window so he can look at rain and feel shit. So, and then he starts doing little acts of rebellion, like moving the stapler on his desk to a different corner. And he's like, I'm just trying to optimize my working space, fellow citizen.
Yeah, there's it when he goes to the office, like doing the thing where every person who lives in Libria walks in the same tunnel every day. His lower lip starts moving, and he's like, no, I have to do this, and takes off his glove and feels the railing. It's just a very weird way to show him feeling emotion.
Yeah, he starts wanting to touch people on public transit.
Yeah.
It's very reckless, because he starts doing stuff like moving his stapler around. Meanwhile, everybody else at the Feelings Cop headquarters, every time they see you, they're just like, hey, guy with feelings says what?
Yeah. He's the worst. He's the worst at hiding that he's a feeling rebel of all time. He sucks at it.
But do you think that that's sort of we were laughing about it in the movie, because he is when he the more he starts to try to cover for the way he's feeling, the worse he is at it.
Yeah.
Like
No,
you know,
he,
like,
he just gets feelings all over the place.
yeah, he's like he's snickering to himself when he sees a feeling cop like trip and fall. He's like, oh fuck, I gotta go keep this in. But wouldn't that make sense to someone who's like never had feelings? He wouldn't be very good at hiding them,
Right.
That is what most of our listeners are like when they move out of their parents' house.
Then there's like many scenes in this movie are just more and more SWAT raids on like feelings caves.
Yeah, like
And they go to the feeling glory hole and they like just sort of peek through and just catch a little suck of feeling.
Yeah, like there's this one of the feelings raids that they do. He'll go into like a feeling hidden room that's like, you know, tucked away somewhere deep, and he'll put on like Beethoven and just start weeping. It's awesome.
You said when it's like he finds an old record player and of course like Beethoven. So
Yeah.
you know, you can't listen to Beethoven.
That's the happy
Yeah,
shit.
that's
That's like Fent.
Well, no, he said it's like when cops like accidentally OD
Yeah.
on Fent because they snort one molecule of
Yeah.
it and they're like, oh, I'm dying.
Yeah.
Dude, when I see a snow globe of Paris, a place I've never been, I start crying like a baby.
Oh yeah, he listens to Beethoven and picks up a snow globe of Paris, and it's like too much for him to handle.
Yeah. It's like just imagining him going to like a fucking like a bookstore at a airport and just falling onto his knees and everything.
Just like taking out a cat o' nine tails and whipping yourself because you're reading like a Michael Crichton novel.
And then in my favorite scene in the movie, so like it's got. I mean, it would be bad enough if these filthy sense criminals were just like hoarding Beethoven and you know old copies of Penthouse and whatnot, but they find a hidden stash of dogs. Oh no!
Yeah, and they like the funniest thing, like there's a lot of funny shit with the dog scene. Well, first of all, it's a good scene because it introduces like a moral complexity to the movie where it's like up until this point you thought the Tetragrammaton clerics were bad because they're just like, you know, killing feelings criminals for, you know, like listening to Journey, but now it's like, well, now they actually are fighting like a societal evil of dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like it is funny during that scene because like they find the dogs and like they've only been doing this for like 20 years, and Taye Diggs is like, why do they have them? To eat them? And it's like, we would remember why we had dogs, you fucking idiot.
No, they've suppressed all knowledge of dogs. They're like they don't even have a word for it. They're like, what are these things?
Yeah. They show photos like later in the movie of like Sean Bean hanging out with Emily Watson, and they're wearing like normal clothes, and it's not Libria, and it seems to be like 10 years ago. And it's like, you haven't been doing this. Like, you would remember what a dog was. Like, if you know what World War I and World War II and World War III were, it would be like, oh, we like had these as companions when we had emotions.
Well, you know what? I mean, they remember what dogs are at least enough to know what to do with a dog.
That's
just
true.
shoot them on
Yeah.
to line them up and gun them down.
And we've seen like hundreds of people get mowed down with bullets, but then suddenly Preston sees the threat of a puppy being murdered, and that's when he loses it.
Yeah, no, they find this. I think it's like a Burmese mountain dog puppy, and they're like, again, he's like, 30 SWAT guys have their guns ready to go, and he's picked up this dog and is looking at it directly in his eyes. His lip quivers.
Yeah.
And just he's like, and then he's like, citizen, I'm taking this dog to processing myself.
Yeah. I have a special dog execution chamber at my house. Well, yeah, the excuse he gives is like,
he's like, there's a lot of diseases at the Nethers.
Yeah.
They're spreading diseases, so I'm going to interrogate this thing.
Yeah, he was going to test it for a disease by taking it into the city, with just holding it.
We were laughing like after they kill all the dogs. Taye Diggs is like, "Sir, we found several barrels of peanut butter in the back of this compound."
That's how they jumpstart the feelings.
Yeah.
Well, when Kurt Warmer was like, "What's the worst thing I could ever possibly imagine in my entire imagination?" It's a bunch of puppies dying.
Yeah.
Before we get to do the peanut
And,
butter
like-
trick with them.
Yeah, like 75,000 people die in this movie. Like
So,
every scene.
So like so there's a scene where like he like later that night or like a couple days later he's in his and what is it about like the cars they drive in this, or just like an all white Toyota Corolla?
Yeah, it'll be like a Camry that has like boxy or something put on it because that's like the least emotional car. It's like if you drove a Subaru, that's an emotion. You'd be killed. Yeah.
I have a Subaru. God damn it! All right, so like he's leaving Libria and he's going through a checkpoint. And he's like, Cleric Preston going to the Nethers to do some official business. They're like, okay, sir, have a no feelings day. Bye. So he goes there, but Tate Diggs is following him because Tate Diggs, of course, is like very suspicious because he's like, why is this guy snickering to himself and being emo? Why is he looking like sort of like longingly at windows when it's raining and stuff like that? So he's like he's secretly followed into the Nethers. It's like the bad part of town. He thinks no one's around. And you're like, oh, what's going on? And then he opens the trunk of his car, his white Toyota Corolla, and he's had the cute puppy in there for days. Yeah. He's kept the puppy. He's hidden the puppy away from the paw police in the trunk of his car. But because this is Libria. There's no music. The dog doesn't have any music to listen to.
None of his favorite
It's
music.
just a hot trunk of a car.
With a bunch of guns inside. The dog's just like fucking around in there with all these guns lying around.
Well, I mean, that is like one thing that's true in Libria, also true in our society. The trunk is the dog's favorite part of the car. It's where they love hanging out.
So like he takes the puppy out of the trunk of the car and is gonna let it loose because he's like, hey, like you go on, I don't know what to do with you. And then of course the puppy once it's imprinted on you, it's just gonna follow you around. He probably already fed it, and he's just looking at him with his puppy eyes. But no. Thought police show up, feelings cops show up, and they roll up in a huge dump truck, and they're like, halt, citizen!
Yeah.
Stay right there. What are you doing?
This is where the real movie starts.
Yeah.
Like the meat of this movie is Tetragrammaton cleric John Preston just murdering cops by like the thousands. And these parts are actually worse. Because like there's like you think he's gonna get away with it because like the head like street sergeant of the feelings cops are like, oh, I didn't recognize you, Cleric Preston. Carry on.
Oh yeah, wait. I saw this guy on a blimp yesterday, telling me not to turn into thought criminals.
Yeah, my bad. My bad, Cleric Preston. But then they hear like a bark, like a little puppy's like yelp.
And he was like, "That's just my ringtone."
Yeah. And then like instantly they're like, "He's a sex offender. Stop him!" But Christian Bale just like, because these are like the worst cops of the Tetragrammaton, Christian Bale just takes out his two like Desert Eagles and just smokes like 10 of them.
Captain, I'm asking you one last time. Don't do this.
Down on your knees! Down on your knees! Do it! Do it! Shoot him! On the front line! Shoot him! Shoot him!
Which is, to be fair to this movie, Christian Bale is able to repeatedly kill all these guys because they're like, okay, we have these long G36 rifles. Let's all stand 2 inches away from him in a circle where we can't even like extend our guns, and he can just beat the shit out of us with karate.
Well, their mobility is limited because they're all wearing Daft Punk helmets and long leather BDSM trench coats, so they're not really good at fighting.
No, they suck. Like, it's like, it honestly reflects poorly on the rebels that it's like, their plan is basically like, your plan should basically be like, just run at these guys. They can move like 20 degrees a minute.
It does really seem to suggest that the only person who was keeping the no feelings dictatorship alive was Christian Bale.
Yeah, everyone else sucks.
Like, everyone else sucks bad.
Yeah.
I mean, honey, have you seen those muscles? Hello.
That's the other thing. That's the only thing I didn't like about this movie. It doesn't explain, like, he doesn't, like, you can't get a body like Christian Bale's in this movie and not do weights, and all he does is, like, karate.
Yeah, Felix will be starring in the sequel to Equilibrium called Equinox.
Well, this is like, if you go to Equinox, it looks like Libria.
And it's just drab and depressing as well.
Yeah, like, no, when I check in there, they're like, how do you feel coming here? And I'm like, I don't.
Would you like a guest pass? No. Correct. You pass.
I've turned in a lot of feelings criminals who, hang out in the sauna, let's be honest.
The clerk at the desk has a gun under the desk.
Yeah, but except one day I'm going to go there and I'm going to accidentally like hear an Everlast song and like a tear is going to roll down my eye. And then the Equinox clerics will surround me and I'll just beat the shit out of them with a weight bar. Just take a 45 bar and just destroy them.
What's the name of the medicine again? The feelings medicine?
Prosium.
Okay, Prosium. So next time you get emotional at an Equinox, just take your Prosium, which is what, muscle milk?
Yeah. No. Well, at Equinox, they sell some like bullshit muscle milk that like comes in like a Libria type container that's called like Enliven or something. that costs like $9, but there's no difference.
So after he saves a puppy from both the trunk of his hot car and 30 feelings cops, then it's the next day, and he just decides to get it's not weightlifting, but he does a little training. And by training, I mean he's in a big empty room in like the hall of muscles. And
the stud hall.
And he's just sort of like doing like he's holding a stick.
Yeah, he's doing like kendo.
He's doing kendo, yeah, and he's waving a stick around. But then, of course, Tay Diggs shows up, and he's just like, "Care to train with me?" And he's like, "I don't care, but I will."
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh God, this guy's good."
Yeah.
So they do a kendo stick battle, and Tay Diggs is like, "I'm on to you. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about all those feelings cops that got killed in the Nethers last night." He's like, "Yes, if I was thinking about them, I certainly wouldn't feel anything about it."
Yeah. I remember that scene was like big for me when I was a little kid because it was like I wanted to like do that in my basement, but there was like a ping pong table there. I don't even know like why I wanted to do that. It's like, oh, in case there's like a feelings dictatorship when I turn like 15. I need 3 years of doing this.
And then Tay Diggs lets him know that, according to like Father, the benevolent overlord of the society, he's like, Father has passed a new decree. There will be no more interrogations of sense offenders. They will be executed on site. It's fucking on site.
Yeah.
If you catch any feels, it's on site.
And that was like Christian Bale was using like before when after he stopped taking Lexapro, but like before that, like his way that he would get away with not killing feelings criminals would be like, oh, we have to interrogate them to find more. Like, I have to waterboard this dog.
And he spends a lot of time with Emily Watson in her like detainment cell, and he's just like she's like, oh, you don't know what the word friend means. And he's like, Webster's defines it as a companion,
Does
close
not
associate.
compute.
Yeah.
Those scenes are awesome because it's just like, it's like Emily Watson and Christian Bale are both like good actors in my opinion, but like the writing is like, it's like they're trying to do their best, but the writing is like, she'll go like, I bet if someone cried in front of you, you wouldn't even know what you were seeing. and he's like, because he's like off his medication, he's like, I do what I do for society. So like, there's such weird scenes.
Yeah, she says about the French, she's like, Fred, you don't know what that word means. It's just a feeling you've never felt.
Yeah, and then he starts like crying. Like, it's awesome.
No, this is like Terminator 2, except like it'd be like at the end before he gets lowered into the vat of molten steel. He's like, I still don't know why you cry, and it's still something I can't do. Bye.
Yeah.
So again, like just like another scene in this movie, like Tay Diggs is like, okay, we're doing another raid on a feelings factory. Meet you there. Let's tool up. And then like they just drive a dump truck through. It looks to be like a sort of like a meth lab for
Yeah, like
for
it looks like they were actually manufacturing feelings.
There's like
were
there's
making
big
White
oil
Claw.
drums and like beakers
Yeah.
and like Erlenmeyer flasks. They're like, it's a fucking raid. There's someone hide these feelings.
Yeah.
Every location in this movie is a brutalist building, and the inside looks like the set of Top Chef, or like what's his name, Brundle's lab from The Fly.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
every room is that.
Yeah, it's like they don't go into a lot of like. I wish there was more world building in this movie where it's like, okay, like what's food like if you can't have emotions? Like what is the rebel society like? But as far as the rebel society is just like, it's just like a bunch of like sort of like dirty looking guys like who like seem to have like less emotions than the Tay Diggs character.
It's
They
just
have,
like guys with facial hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's look at these fucking hipsters and their freaking feelings.
Yeah, no, yeah. Every scene they have where they kill all those guys, they're just like completely emotionless. It's like, okay, well, who's the feeling criminal here?
And then they all just hang out listening to like records, like they're listening to the Snoopy and the Red Baron song while they're flipping through old issues of Good Housekeeping to have feelings and just waiting for the cops to come and murder them. That's all they do. That's all they do.
So like, and then Cleric Preston once again kills like 30 feelings cops, and like the whole army of feelings cops are in just like the next burnt out factory door over.
Yeah.
They're right outside, and he kills like another dozen cops, and then helps the hipster criminals get away. But then Taye Diggs is like, "Thank you for leading them right into my trap."
I just realized why the feelings cops are so bad at fighting. It's because they're not quick to anger because they have no feeling. And they're like, that's what happens when you're on, what's it called, Prozac?
Prosium.
When you're on Prosium, you can't be good at like freaking beating up people because you're not quick to anger and being a freak.
That scene before, like Christian Bale is like clearly leading these rebels out, and he's just like yelling at them as loud as possible, like, go, they'll kill you. And the fucking idiot cops stand around him for like 5 minutes and are like, hey, Cleric Preston, what are you doing? And then there was like a 5-minute zoom into Christian Bale's like nose, and then he just like takes out his pistols and beats the shit out of like.
After putting the little metal spike coming out of the end of the butt, which is enough to cave in someone's entire
he stoves
face.
in all their Daft Punk helmets and destroys them.
I remember like
that's part of Gun Kata. That's part of the total weapon system.
Me and a group of friends were arguing about that scene, and I was like, no, that's actually smart, because like if that was happening, you wouldn't react quick enough if like a Tetragrammaton cleric decided to kill you. And my friends were like, that's a good point.
Felix has spent 30% of his life defending this movie to the death.
No, it was a big part of my childhood, was like telling people about Equilibrium and then like them not talking to me anymore.
So yeah, like, and then there's some moment where Taye Diggs is like, perhaps you should execute these feelings traitors, and Christian Bale's like, okay, and then he like gives him the gun back, and he's like, actually, you do it, and then they're just like, all right, fine,
flawless misdirection,
yeah. Fine, they're okay with that. And then I forget why, but like he, I don't know, like he finds another feeling stash, and he realizes that Emily Watson and Sean Bean were like lovers because there's a photo of them together with the word freedom written on the back.
This movie fucking owns.
And then he uses that to contact the leader of the underground, played by William Fichtner, who says that he's like, I know you've been looking for me. My name is Jurgen. I'm Jurgen, and the leader of the underground. And you could tell it's the underground because they're literally underground. They're watching people's feet walk around up the gray, drab, boring sidewalk where everyone's going down the same industrial tunnel to their job at the walking in a circle factory.
Yeah, this is like one of the most literal movies I've ever seen. Probably the most.
Oh, and then like so he contacts the underground. But before the underground can like really start using him, they have to give him a polygraph test. They give him the boner test. They have to make sure that his heart still pumps blood. So they show him some sexy. They show him Lola Bunny from Space Jam and see how sprung he gets for it.
They show him the green M&M, and then they ask him the trick question: "Do I make you horny, baby?"
Oh shit. Okay, yeah. Felix has been eating all of Catherine's streets all week long.
Uh-oh, Felix is in his feeling. Felix, more like Felixings. Yeah. You're under arrest.
I pulled a book on the shelf. I pulled that poster of The Godfather, and it opened up a false wall with all these cookies inside of it. I just started weeping, and then my terrible son was like, I will you will report the Equilibrium tomorrow to replace the cookies.
Then he goes back to Angus McFadden, he's the daddy of the society. He's not. So Angus McFadden starts getting mad at him, and it's like getting mad at him in a very obvious way, where he's just like, Cleric Preston, we sent you to infiltrate the resistance. What do you have to show for it? He's like, nothing yet, sir. And then he punches a table, and he's like, that's not good enough. And it's just like, wait a second.
Those are feelings, dude.
Wouldn't he get shot on
You're
sight?
doing feelings.
He's pounding the table. He's like punching drywall, being like,
yeah.
He's like, our perfect society is on the brink of collapse. What are you doing here?
I think if I was to go into the mind of one of the leaders, one of the members of the council is in it, I would say, look, feelings, they're bad, but some of us can handle it. And we will deserve to be in charge.
We'll see what happens with that. But in order to more fully sort of lead the revolution, Christian Bale takes it upon himself to finally watch the saved footage of his wife's execution. And it's a sort of interesting thing in this society when they take you to the hall of processing, the hall of combustion.
Hall of combustion.
They take you to go to do busting.
They take you to get busted.
They
That's
take
what
you
they
to
say.
bust. They take you to a room to bust. But before they do that, they put you, like a red leather hood and cape on you, or like it's sort of like a shiny leather hood and cape.
Yeah.
And then they walk you down a hall, and instead of just shooting you and burning the body, they make you just walk into a closet that is a fire room.
But that's the weirdest thing. They like have you put on the leather cape for like a minute, and then you have to take it off. Like it's so like there is a secret feelings criminal who like established this process because it's so theatrical.
Yeah. Places, everybody.
It's
Places.
it's Lindsey Graham like found a place in feelings government.
Well, what's more joyless than like the idea of having to like reuse all of your ritual capes? It's like we don't make custom ones for all the people on death row. We reuse them and sent them to like a scary what's it called, dry cleaning factory that looks like a psychiatrist's office or whatever. Every room in there looks like a scary psychiatrist's office.
I guess anyone. That's the only.
Because it all looks like psychiatrist's office because there's no more need for them in the future, so that they've repurposed all their offices into the hall of bussin'.
That's probably what happened. Is like the one guy who made the leather cape he had to have been a feelings criminal, and they're like, look, like the cape's great for this, but like you would have made it just like gray if you weren't actually feeling. It's time to put it on. But like before, they're like, no, wait, no, we can't make another. He was the only guy who knew how to make that.
Yeah. It's like the redness of the cloak, it signifies the danger of emotion, and the fact that it's not incinerated just means that there's only one of them, and they have to share it with every one of the feeling criminals that they execute. So Christian Bale watches his wife get murdered and like catches feels about it for the first time ever, and then he's like, oh fuck, and then he walks in a very emotional way, and then starts running, which in this society, homie, if I catch you in Libya running, it's on its side. You'll be
because it's like you would only be running if you were late somewhere or really wanted to be somewhere, and
that's
it's like
that's feelings.
You wouldn't be late if you didn't have emotions. Emotions cause the lateness.
Yep.
Because you're like, oh, I don't look good enough to leave. That's a feeling.
So he runs to the Hall of Bussin' just in time to see Emily Watson get incinerated in one of the fire closets.
Owned.
And then what does he do? He walks out, he walks down the steps of the Hall of Busing, and then collapses into a fetal position in the middle of the street and starts crying. And that's the moment when Taye Diggs is like, you're under arrest. Like, everything leading up to this, they were just like, it was all one big sting to get him in this one, the most obvious emotional outburst ever.
I actually think the line Taye Diggs says is, you're under arrest for being a pussy bitch.
Yeah.